All right, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from StreetScores, and man, I have so many notes and takeaways from this Commanders victory over the Eagles. I'm gonna have to split this up between offense and defense. You know, my videos typically go over an hour long, but this one may be even longer than that, just from with the notes I have alone. So this will be the offense half of the Washington Commanders victory of the Eagles review. You know, we're going to go position group by position group. We're going to talk about the entire offense as a whole. You already know I have some crazy stats, some historical records that the Commanders are breaking, both franchise-wise and NFL-wise. Jayden Daniels especially. We're going to talk about the quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, offensive line, all of that type of stuff. Again, this is just the offensive half of the video. We're going to do the defensive either later on tonight or tomorrow, because we're also live streaming on the Commanders Kings tonight. Make sure you pull up for that as well. But before we dive into all of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you stick on that like button. Make sure you hit the bell next to the subscription button, and make sure you stay tuned for everything Commanders. Of course, I will be live streaming this upcoming game against them sorry little Falcons. Y'all already know that's the team I hate more than any other team in the entire NFL. So we need that dub, just for me personally, but also we literally need that dub to make sure we make it into the playoffs. So let's go get that dub against the Falcons. I'll be live streaming that game just like I was live streaming the Eagles game. Without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into this video, man. Let's get it. Adam. So is Jayden Daniels the best quarterback in the entire NFL right now? There are some stats to probably back that up. I'm going to give you the stats. You take away what you want to take away from those stats and come to that conclusion yourself. We're going to get there. Also, we got to talk about how Adam Peters finessed the Eagles. Do we need to replace Brian Robinson? We're going to talk about all of that in this video. But before we get there, we got to talk about injuries. And then we got to talk about Cliff Kingsbury and the offense as a whole, because I feel like with all of the love that Jayden Daniels has been getting, I don't feel like Cliff Kingsbury has been getting enough love. Now, let's start with the injuries, of course. I mean, even before the game started, somehow Zach Ertz and Jeremy Chinn ended up playing against the Philadelphia Eagles, and we needed every bit of both of them. I think Zach Ertz had one catch that went for a first down when we needed it at a really big moment, like really needed it. And then Jeremy Chinn ended up playing in that game, thank goodness. And just to let you know, he was like fifth on our team out of in tackles. Like, it was like Bobby Wagner, then Mike Sanderson and Frankie Louisville with 7 each. Then it was Johnny Newton and Jeremy Chinn tied for fourth, actually. So we needed Jeremy Chinn in that game. 6 total tackles, 3 of them being solo. He was flying around out there. So the fact that those guys even played was a huge boost for us. But then at the same time, coming into that game, just to let you know, for those of y'all who didn't pull up to the stream, because I tell y'all this before the start of every game. During the live stream, I start live streaming like 15, 30 minutes before the game starts, and I run you down this entire list. But the inactives going into that game were defensive tackle Fedarian Mathis, healthy scratch, more than likely will not be with the team next year. That's the reason I bring this up. Guard Chris Paul, not likely to be with the team next year, but I'm pretty sure he'll at least be around for training camp, but not very likely to make the 53-man roster. Cornerback Michael Davis, gone. Wide receiver KJ Osborne, we were hoping he'd be ready to play against the Eagles. He has now missed 2 games since we signed him. Maybe he'll finally make his Commanders debut against the Falcons. That will be interesting. That'll be a pretty cool wrinkle to add to the Commanders offense. But it seems like with Jayden Daniels, it doesn't even matter. It would be nice if he had better weapons, but I mean, that guy's making something shake regardless. Then you have Jeff Driscoll, who's always a healthy scratch. That's just because he's your emergency quarterback. With the new rules that the NFL put in place like a year or 2 ago, you can have a third quarterback who's not even technically on the active list that can come in and play for you if you have to, if the first 2 quarterbacks get hurt. And then also linebacker Dominique Hampton, that is your, I believe, 6th round rookie, free safety, making the transition to off-ball linebacker. So I'm not surprised that he's not like good enough to play in actual games yet. He's been a healthy scratch all season as well, but no like extreme injuries. I mean, we were hoping maybe Jonathan Allen could play, but I'm not gonna lie, from everything that I'm seeing and hearing, it seems like Jonathan Allen will make his debut against the Falcons. So just keep that in mind. All of that went down before the game even started. Then Jalen Hurts got hurt. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know if his last name jinxed him, but I mean, both times we've played Jalen Hurts, he suffered concussions. He should have left that game we played against him last time. He definitely should have left that game. He had no business staying in that game. He was all over the place. It even seemed like for a few weeks after that in games, he wasn't the same since. Like it just looked like he was suffering from concussion symptoms even after the first time we played them. And then it finally took him like 5-6 weeks later to finally be able to throw for over 200 and something passing yards. And then as soon as he got back right, I guess mentally, he ended up suffering another concussion. It was a really interesting situation because they were thinking about throwing him back out there, and then it was like a certain point where like the ref was looking at him and Jalen Hurts gave him the thumbs up like I'm good, and the ref was like, nah, take it, tell it to the judge, like, nah, you got to get up out of here. I'm not about to allow that on my field. And that's like one of the very few good things the refs did all game. You know, I'm not a player. They can't find me for talking crazy about the refs. We're going to get there as well when we're done with the injuries. But also, Dyami Brown at a certain point came limping off of the field. Then he came back into the game, and then at a certain point, he ended up getting hurt again, so we got to see what's going on there. Also, Eagles defensive end Josh Sweat got hurt at a certain point. He was questionable to return. Jordan Davis, my Georgia Bulldog, had to be helped off the field at one point in time. And then even the play that happened to Jordan Davis, and again, with him being a Georgia Bulldog, I really hated to see that. But that type of block that John Bates put on Jordan Davis is technically legal, but I really hate that, even if it didn't happen to a Georgia Bulldog. Then even 5th-round rookie linebacker Jordan McGee, who's been playing more and more every week that's gone by for the past few weeks, he ended up suffering some type of hamstring injury. He was questionable to return. I'm not sure if he ever ended up returning, but he got banged up. And then even Marshawn Lattimore, did he ever go back out there onto the field after he suffered an injury? He was in the blue medical tent. I'm assuming it's a hamstring injury because the reason that after we traded for him, he hadn't played for the first few weeks after we traded for him was due to a hamstring injury. I'm assuming that he probably tweaked that in the game, but I don't know. But at a certain point, Benjamin St. Juste came into that game, and I don't believe he ever left. And then it was officially announced that Dyami Brown had a hamstring injury, and I'm not sure if he ever returned. And so I know a lot of Eagles fans are going to talk about injuries and blame the loss on that and everything like that, but we had our fair share of injuries as well, man. I mean, we're talking about starting defensive linemen, we're talking about starting wide receivers, we're talking about really good running back. You got to remember the guys that were hurt before the game even started. I mean, we can't forget Austin Eckler, Noah Brown, Jonathan Allen, just off the rip, let alone the guys that got hurt during the game alongside the Eagles players that got hurt during the game. I mean, we're on to our 6th kicker, technically our 7th, but then we just went right back to our 6th. So it's kind of like, I mean, if you're talking about not just kickers by name, but like this guy started this week, this guy started this week, we're technically probably on to like our 10th kicker this season, with some guys, you know, kind of going back and forth. And then of course, Marshawn Lattimore got hurt in a certain point in that game, and the Eagles were taking full advantage of that. They were throwing it to Benjamin St. Juste as often as they could as soon as Marshawn Lattimore got hurt. So I don't want to hear nothing about injuries from the Eagles fans. I mean, Andrew Wiley even got hurt at a certain point. He had to come out. That's your starting right tackle. So it was an ugly game for everybody. Yeah, Jalen Hurts got hurt, but and I'm going to talk about this definitely on the defensive half of the video, because y'all know the second half of my video reviews after games, you know, I do like everybody else's thoughts on the game. I give my last finishing thoughts. Right now, we're just talking about offense, injuries, and we're going to get to the rest really soon. But, you know, I'm going to give my final thoughts on why the Eagles fans have no room to complain in the second half of the video, so make sure you be on the lookout for that. But, yeah, man, that was just an ugly game for everybody, and Jalen Hurts got hurt, but Kenny Pickett wasn't doing too bad. Now, I'm not saying Kenny Pickett is better than Jalen Hurts, but it wasn't like Jalen Hurts was the one that was out there that got juked out by Olamide Zaccheaus on that touchdown where he juked out 2 defenders. That wasn't Jalen Hurts, copies of Jalen Hurts all in the defense. That wasn't Jalen Hurts in coverage on the game-winning touchdown to Jamison Crowder. So, you know, technically the #1 defense statistically gave up the most points all season to the Washington Commanders while we were down the majority of our offensive weapons. I don't want to hear none of that. Now, also, I guess we can bring up excuses as well. It was an interesting game as far as referees go. I had a lot more notes, but I'm just going to kind of skim through it real quick, like just skip over it, because long story short, really it was a tale of 2 halves. The first half, I'm not going to lie, we were getting calls where I was like, yeah, if I were an Eagles fan, I'd be mad. I said that live on my live stream. I got to keep it 1,000, which I'm always keep it 100. When the refs are cheating in favor of us, I'm going to admit it. Like, yeah, that was a bad call, and the Commanders benefited from them. I'm always going to do that. And I'm always going to call it out when teams are cheating against us. And boy, that second half, everything did a complete 180. The refs went from helping us and hating on the Eagles to the exact opposite. That second half was insane. I mean, those first two Marshon Lattimore pass interference calls were ridiculous to me. I mean, the first one, A.J. Brown is not only stiff-arming Marshon Lattimore, but he has him by the collar and pulling him down. The only reason Marshon Lattimore is even grabbing his arm is because he's trying to basically keep on his own feet from falling, because A.J. Brown is literally throwing him to the ground. So I don't want to hear none of that. The second one was super bang-bang, and I felt like, if anything, both of those calls, you honestly could have called them on A.J. Brown and nobody would have really questioned it. So it is what it is, man. I'm not going to dive into every single bad call that game, because we still have so much to talk about offensively. We still got to talk about Brian Robinson. We got to talk about Jayden Daniels, Cliff Kingsbury, the wide receivers, Terry McLaurin, Jamison Crowder, and Olamide Zaccheaus, each having 2 touchdowns versus their former teams. Olamide Zaccheaus, no, I mean, not against their former teams, but just having 2 touchdowns in general. Olamide Zaccheaus had 2 touchdowns against his former team. We got to bring up even Jahan Dotson. We're going to get to that soon. But just long story short, man, the rest was just terrible. It is what it is, man. Eagles fans can't necessarily complain. Commanders fans can't even necessarily complain, because the rest was showing us love in the first half and then showed the Eagles love in the second half, and it just is what it is, man. I mean, my rule of thumb is always, you should never allow the refs to even be able to affect the game to that point. You should dominate your opponent to where the refs can't even legally find a way to turn that game around. Now, granted, there's little things like, remember, Jonathan Allen, we lost him for the majority of the season after a phantom pass interference call to Benjamin St-Juste, and then the Ravens ended up scoring a touchdown on that drive as well. So sometimes you just can't help it. Refs can win the other team the game. It's just really nothing you can do. But at the same time, I try my best to go in with the mentality, hey man, if you were doing your job to the highest capability, and if you were dominating the game like you should be, the refs wouldn't even be able to take the game away from you. Even if they were being one-sided with the calls, if you were playing well enough, it wouldn't actually matter. But I mean, sometimes they really do affect games to the point that there's nothing you could do. And then let's move on to Cliff Kingsbury and his offense. Well, it got off to a pretty ugly start. I mean, we were down 21-7 at one point in that game, just in the first quarter alone. 21-7 in the first quarter. You could blame the defense the majority of that, but we are statistically one of the best first quarter teams in the NFL. According to we're on a 14 game streak now of scoring in the first quarter. No other team in the NFL has done that. It has that active streak that long right now. No other team in the NFL. So we're technically the most efficient first quarter team in the NFL. And so the fact that we only scored 7 points in the first quarter is not a good thing at all. I mean, it took us 22 points in the fourth quarter to win that game by 3 points. So you can blame the defense a lot, but you can also blame the offense, which takes me to Cliff Kingsbury. I mean, we started with great field positioning to start that game a couple of times. I mean, we started at the 40-yard line after Philly's kickoff failed to land in the landing zone. That was weird. I don't remember seeing that penalty happen for or against the Commanders this season. That was one I kind of forgot that even existed. That was even something that could happen. And we're going to talk about special teams on the defensive half of the ball, but I just felt like both kickers for the Commanders and Eagles just couldn't kick the ball into the end zone to save their lives on kickoffs. Everybody was starting catching the ball around the 5-yard line consistently. We're going to talk about Luke McCaffrey when we get to the special teams part as well. But it was just an ugly start. I mean, first of all, 4th and 1, we couldn't pick it up. We got stuffed bad on that. And it looked like, to me, some people were blaming Cliff Kingsbury. I felt like it was more so a bad John Bates block. And that's crazy, because John Bates, you're only here to block. That's it. Last time we threw you the ball, you fumbled it a few weeks ago. You're literally a 3rd tackle on the field, a 6th defensive lineman. For you to miss a block, it's literally why are you here? I still like John Bates. I believe he's an unrestricted free agent after this season. I want to re-sign him long-term for very cheap, but there's just no excuse for that. And I got to call you out. Even if I like you as a player, if you have a bad play, I'm going to call you out for it, just like I'm going to call out Jayden Daniels for the 2 interceptions he had when we get to him later on in this video. But I mean, it was just bad too, man. It was just crazy. I mean, the offense couldn't get anything going. And I like Dan Quinn being aggressive going for it on 4th and 1, but the play just didn't work out and it looked really ugly. And it sucked because we had a 47-yard return by Luke McCaffrey, and then we ended up fumbling after that. I mean, the name of the game was turnovers, and you cannot blame Cliff Kingsbury for turnovers. Overall, before I even forget this point that I want to make before we start to dive into the details of what happened throughout this game, Cliff Kingsbury, I mean, you may not like every call that he made, but he had a great play calling day overall. I mean, even just the game-winning touchdown. Yeah, Jayden Daniels is amazing, but Cliff Kingsbury called a great route concept for Jamison Crowder to even be open in the back of the end zone. Jayden Daniels is elite, phenomenal, great play. We're going to give him his flowers when we get there as well, but Cliff Kingsbury deserves a lot of credit for somehow overcoming 5 turnovers. Cliff Kingsbury doesn't call turnover plays. He doesn't call 3 fumbles and 2 interceptions from his call sheet like, oh, okay, this play, 2nd and 9, you know what? Brian Robinson, go fumble for me real quick. That's not on Cliff Kingsbury. That's on the players. So for him, I feel like Cliff Kingsbury deserves a lot of credit for overcoming 5 turnovers against the #1 statistical defense in the NFL and to still score 22 points in the 4th quarter to put up 36 points on the Eagles, the most they've allowed all season. I feel like Cliff Kingsbury deserves a lot of credit for that. But just to let you know, people were saying, I remember just to go, now we can go back into the details. Going back to the first quarter, it was crazy because after we were down 7-0, after failing on the 4th down, remember, we started with the ball. We lost, the rare coin toss loss this season where we don't start on defense. We're like 11-4 now in the season, 11-5 or something like that. We've won the majority of coin tosses. That's why we're so used to the Commanders starting on defense in games and coming out of the 3rd quarter on offense. Well, that was the opposite this game. We started on offense, went out there, failed that 4th and 1. The Eagles immediately score, and I remember people vividly saying, hey man, we couldn't have had an even worse start than that. And then you know what? We found out that was a lie, because then we immediately go down 14-0 after a fumble. And I mean, it just got really ugly. And then we were up to a point where we had 3 possessions with no first downs. That is absolutely insane. That is incredible to think. We went from an offense that never punted to, against the Eagles in the first quarter, 3 possessions without a single first down. And I mean, admittingly, the Eagles do really well with covering with 7, and then you can just go ahead and send 4 at the offensive line, and then we struggle with blocking 4 with 5 or even 6 sometimes. That's what they're really good at. But that's what happens when you draft a few Georgia Bulldog championship winners. You know what I'm saying? You can afford to do that. And that's why this Jayden Daniels game is even more impressive, because the Eagles are selling out against the pass. They're stopping the run just from talent. They're using numbers to stop the pass, and for Jayden Daniels to overcome the numbers advantage that the Eagles had in the passing game is insane in itself. But at a certain point, man, before things got too ugly, Frankie Louvu went and got an interception. And this is a good time to talk about the fact, let me bring the jerseys into the camera, because everybody pointed it out. Everybody was getting mad at me. As soon as we went down 14-0, I didn't even notice it. I had on my Jayden Daniels black jersey that I love to wear. It's my favorite jersey that I own. I just bought it myself a few weeks ago, and it's a Jayden Daniels jersey, so I wanted to represent it's a black jersey. I love the black jerseys, so I love wearing it as much as I can. And then everybody in the stream was like, wait, Rico, we're down 14-0. We just figured it out. Why are you wearing that jersey? That jersey is bad luck. Put the Sean Taylor jersey back on. And yes, this thing is, I mean, it's done. It's all the way from middle school, and I'm a grown man now and I still can't fit this jersey. So imagine how big it was on me back then. But you know, that was the style back then. That was the lean with it, rock with it days with the XXL t-shirts. So y'all already know how Atlanta got down with the Laffy Taffy and everything like that. But this jersey's huge, it's beat up, but when in doubt, we win. Literally, as I'm I turned off my camera, so because I didn't want people just seeing me struggling, you know, to change jerseys and everything like that. It wasn't nothing crazy, but I just felt like nobody needed to necessarily see me do it. As I took off the black jersey, and then I grabbed this jersey, I just only have it around my neck. I don't even have my arms through the sleeves yet, just around my neck over the shirt that I was currently wearing at that time. Not this shirt, of course, but literally had it around my neck. Frankie Louvu interception, and I was like, yep, that's on me, y'all. That's my bad. I take ownership for the terrible Commanders start. We were down 14-0. Frankie Louvu goes and gets that interception on 2nd and 7. First of all, we're going to talk about this when we get to the defensive video, so that's probably going to come out again later tonight, maybe tomorrow. But Joey Jr. deserves a lot of credit for that interception, man. He literally designed that play to confuse Kenny Pickett. Frankie Louvu was going to the left to cover one receiver underneath, and then it was kind of like a fake out thing. He was really going to cover the middle. Kenny Pickett saw Frankie Louvu going this way. It was like, oh, bet, open receiver in the middle, I'm good. Frankie Louvu said, nah, I need that. And then, you know, that changed the entire game. Without that interception, who knows Jayden Daniels, willed us to a win, but you never know. That interception was probably the catalyst that made us believe, hey, we still have a chance to win this game. So either way, sorry y'all, I will be wearing this jersey for the rest of my life in every game. I could be 60 years old, and this jersey by then might be so beat up you can't even tell who what the person is. Just always know it's that 21 Sean Taylor jersey edition. You know what I'm saying? The real one, the real deep burgundy one too. Either way, never taking it off game days. Even if I'm not streaming, I'm gonna wear that jersey. Even if I go to the game, again, it's not in the best shape, but it's good luck at this point. So I just feel like I need to take the time to go ahead and acknowledge that. But immediately after that, Frankie Louisville touchdown. Jayden Daniels throws a touchdown to Jamison Crowder, which took us back to 14-7. Also, we need to acknowledge the fact that Zane Gonzalez made every single PAT they asked him to, up to the point that at the very end of the game, we went for a 2-point conversion to make sure we extended the lead by 3 points, and we converted it. Other than that, he converted all of his PAT kicks. I believe, 4 of them? Let me check. Let me do math real quick. Yeah, he made all 4 of his PATs. We didn't ask him to ever kick a ball, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of happy that game came down to us having to score a touchdown, because before the Jayden Daniels interception, and we're going to talk about it soon when we get to Jayden Daniels, it was inexcusable. Terrible throw, terrible decision, all of that. He deserves to be yelled at for that, I guess, if you want to say that, but definitely deserves to be scolded at the very least. But at the same time, we were playing for a field goal that drive, and then to potentially have to throw our defense out there to hope to hold the Eagles while they're going for 4th downs and hope they don't kick a game-winning field goal. I'm not gonna lie, hindsight 2020, that interception actually put us in a better space, because if we're playing for the field goal instead of playing for the touchdown, who knows what happens. I feel like, honestly, we more than likely lose that game. So hey man, I'll take it. But even on that Jayden Daniels to Jamison Crowder play, it was an excellent play design by Cliff Kingsbury. Again, we're still talking about the offense. We're still talking about Cliff Kingsbury overall, even though I'm bouncing around with idea to idea. But like, shouts out to Grant Paulson for pointing this out. He showed the Eagles a quick out, screen look. Then Crowder hopped like he was setting up to block, baited the Eagles into that look. They ran up. Then he ran and curled into space for a wide open touchdown behind them. They were killing us on the screen games. The screen game was terrible. I was screaming at Cliff Kingsbury to stop calling them, but at the same time, it's a good point to make that those screens that he was calling, the Eagles were biting on them, and that first touchdown that we had in that game to Jamison Crowder to make it 14-7 after the Frankie Louisville interception was Cliff Kingsbury showed them it looks like we're throwing a screen, they step up, and then we run right behind them for a touchdown. So man, shouts out to Cliff for that one, man. Sometimes it's chess, not checkers. Even if a play is not working, you got to make a defense respect it so you can hit them with what you really want to hit them with. So Cliff Kingsbury, genius move. Also, at that point, just off of that touchdown alone, we only had 7 points so far in that game. It's 14-7. At that point, the Commanders had already scored 400 points this season. It is the first time a Washington team has scored 400 plus points in a single season since 2012. And that was before we scored our final 29 points on the game. And so it was, first of all, I was just really happy to see Jamison Crowder score a touchdown. That was really nice. And then, up to that point, we had no running game going. And you could kind of blame Cliff Kingsbury for some of that, but I more so feel like our offensive line was just getting beat up by the Eagles' defensive line. Especially the first 2.5 quarters, maybe even the first 3 quarters, we were getting decimated in the trenches. Our D-line was getting whooped by their offensive line, and our offensive line was getting whooped by their defensive line. Just straight up mano-y-mano, man versus man getting whooped. There was just nothing really Cliff Kingsbury could call out of that. We were at a certain point when we had that touchdown to Jamison Crowder to make it 14-7. We had 3 carries and 1 scramble for only 1 yard total for the team. That is absolutely terrible, but again, that's not necessarily Cliff Kingsbury's fault. That's just us lacking talent. And I feel like this is a great time to bring up the point that you see we have the elite quarterback in Jayden Daniels. You see we have the elite wide receiver in Terry McLaurin, right? And then we may have some other elite pieces. But I just really want to get this through y'all head. This is the worst this burgundy and gold roster will be in the very far future, I feel like. Not even the near future, the far future. This is the first season under Adam Peters as our general manager. This roster, top to bottom, will only get better. Imagine Adam Peters with more drafts, more free agency periods, more times to bring in free agents from other teams and things like that. Brandon Sosna cooking up and chefing on the contract finesses and things like that. Just to let you know, right now, this season is the worst this Commanders roster will ever be, I feel like, for a very long time, and we're 10-5 right now. I feel like this is a great time to put that into perspective. Also, At a certain point, with a rushing play, Washington had moved past the 2005 Burgundy and Gold team, Redskins team, at 2,183 yards for number 8 all-time in franchise history in rushing yards by a team in single season. And just to let you know, we've struggled running the ball 2 games in a row now. Jayden Daniels has been literally the run game for 2 games in a row, and we still managed to move to 8th all-time in franchise history in rushing yards in a season. So fantastic job by the entire team for what they did, but early on in the season and midway through the season, because they've been struggling with the run game now, but they were so efficient and so dominant in the run game like the first third of the season that it kind of like they were able to kind of coast and still break some franchise records, or at least climb some franchise records. I mean, it was literally at a certain point we were asking Jayden Daniels to do way too much. It was literally just him, his legs, his arm, the entire team get on my back. I'm the only reason we have a chance. I mean, after the first quarter, the Washington Commanders had run 35 total yards. I mean, and that's throwing and passing, compared to Saquon Barkley by the end of the first quarter had 109 rushing yards alone. Just him, just rushing. Again, the Commanders had 35 total yards passing and rushing combined at the end of the first quarter, and we were down 21-7. But hey, at least we scored 7 points with only 35 total yards. I'll take that, I guess. And then shouts out to the Commanders, because they went on an 8-play, 96-yard scoring drive with plenty of adversity for the Commanders. Good to keep steady and end with a touchdown. Shouts out to Seawall Sports for that description right there, man. There was a lot of Jayden Daniels heroics on that drive. That was the drive where we started on our own, 4-yard line or something like that, like within our own 5-yard line. It was an ugly start, but then the very first play, Jayden Daniels throws a deep bomb to Dyami Brown. I mean, you couldn't have stopped time and walked it up to Dyami Brown and handed it better than where Jayden Daniels threw that. Shouts out to Dyami Brown for being such a consistent deep ball threat for us. He's not the fastest guy. He's not a burner. He's not Deshaun Jackson in any way. He's actually really not even that fast for real, but he's just really good. He's really efficient. It works. And Jayden Daniels, I mean, that throw looked very reminiscent to the preseason game with Jayden Daniels on his first preseason game. Remember that? To Dyami Brown, it pretty much looked like that. But that time, Dyami Brown had a little bit more separation than he did in the preseason, so he deserves his credit for that. Still a great catch, but at the same time, Jayden Daniels, I mean, literally willed us into that 96-yard touchdown drive that kept the game in distance 21-14, man. You had the deep bomb to Dyami Brown, and then a few plays later, you had the deep bomb to Terry McLaurin against Quinyon Mitchell, who everybody was saying, calling him Guantanamo Bay. He locks up every receiver. He locked up Terry McLaurin last time. Not that play. He got beat so bad, he wasn't even in the side camera view of Terry McLaurin as he caught the ball and ran into the end zone. Like when you look, it was like a certain view that the NFL put when it was the replay of the touchdown from Terry McLaurin's angle. Quinyon Mitchell wasn't even in the view. You couldn't even see him in the camera. Absolutely insane, man. And then the defense got to stop, I believe. And then here comes Jayden Daniels with the interception right before the halftime, and that really sucked too, because I think the Eagles may have ended up even scoring after that interception, maybe like a quick. Oh no, they actually didn't. They didn't score after that, so we were good. Technically, no harm, no foul, but it would have been really nice to get points after that. But Jayden Daniels, the interception was still really bad, inexcusable. Great game overall, fantastic game. Arguably played the best game, I would say, at least the highest ceiling game with the brightest flashes out of any quarterback in the NFL this past weekend of games. But that interception was still inexcusable, man. And then I also hated like how Dan Quinn did not use a timeout towards the end of the half to force Philly to maybe run another play, instead of try another field goal attempt. But maybe they even just punt it. But Dan Quinn, I don't know what happened there. He just didn't want to be aggressive after Jayden Daniels threw that interception. I don't know. Maybe his faith faltered a little bit. I don't know. But luckily, Jake Elliott missed from 56 yards. He was 0 of 6 on the season for the Eagles in 50-plus yarders. Now, he ended up making another one. He ended up making his first 50-yarder, literally a 50-yarder, like right on the line at a 50-yard field goal. Not a 51, not a 52, but 50 later on in the game. But up to that point, right up to halftime, that boy could not make a 50-yarder. So as long as our defense kept them at a certain point on the field, we were pretty much straight there. We wouldn't allow any points. But at halftime, Jayden Daniels was 8 of 15, 108 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and an interception. And then Washington's running backs only had 19 yards on 11 carries. The offense was literally Jayden Daniels. And so somehow we were down only 1 score after 3 first half turnovers. Shouts out to Brian Robinson for that one fumble. I think he had 2 fumbles, and then Jayden Daniels had the 1 interception to start the first half. Those sucked. And then we come back from halftime, and as soon as our offense has a little bit of momentum going, Dyami Brown fumbles the ball. That took it up to 4 turnovers on the day immediately, man. And that was at the point where I was really screaming at Cliff Kingsbury, please stop calling behind the line of scrimmage stuff. Stop calling screens. Is not working at all. And of course, we just all immediately turned our anger to Ron Rivera, because those were Ron Rivera draft picks fumbling the ball. Now, Jayden Daniels was the one that threw the 1 interception, but 2 Brian Robinson fumbles and a Dyami Brown fumble, all Ron Rivera draft picks. And I like Dyami Brown. I like Brian Robinson. I even want them to be here long-term for cheap, but they are not top players at their respective positions, I would say, especially at this point moving on. We're having discussions about Ashton Genty over Brian Robinson. We're talking about, of course, trying to get more receiver help for Jayden Daniels, and I like Dyami Brown, but Dyami Brown is not a wide receiver 2 or 3, but he kind of had to be in this game against the Eagles because we had so many injuries. Again, going back to the point that I'm making, Eagles have no right to talk about injuries. Either way, though, I mean, up to that point in the game, technically, we had 5 turnovers because we had a turnover on downs on that 4th and 1, the first offensive possession. The Eagles scored a touchdown right afterwards. Then we had the Brian Robinson fumble, Jayden Daniels interception, and then Dyami Brown fumble. Those were technically your 5 turnovers, including the 4th and 1 that we didn't convert. And again, I was screaming at Cliff Kingsbury because, again, he kept calling screens even after that Dyami Brown fumble, and it was not working. But like I said earlier, it's chess, not checkers. You got to call those screens, make them respected, because eventually you're going to fake the screen and then do something else, and it's going to work to perfection, and it did. And then we had the Olamide Zaccheaus touchdown from 4 yards out where Jayden Daniels scanned the field and then got it to Olamide. It was a little short, but it worked, and we were down 27-21 at that point, and that was when the stadium started to get back into the game. We started getting hype, and just to let you know, it was 12 men on the field for the Eagles. Olamide Zaccheaus still ended up getting open, and then after that, that was the next Olamide Zaccheaus touchdown was the most amazing one between the 2 that he had. Because first of all, the Eagles had 12 men on the field, which is, how do you have 12 men on the field and Olamide Zaccheaus is still wide open due to a broken coverage? How is that possible? If I'm an Eagles fan, I'm absolutely just astonished by that. I feel like I'm bamboozled by the fact that we had 12 men on the field and still had broken coverage. I mean, do they need 13 guys to stop us from scoring that touchdown? Either way, Olamide Zaccheaus wide open. Jayden Daniels sees him. Not gonna lie, sees him a little bit later than I would have liked because he was wide open from the beginning. He was begging for the ball, but Jayden Daniels still got it to him. I mean, hey, better late than never. And then Olamide Zaccheaus broke 2 tackles, ended up scoring a 49-yard touchdown, and that was one of the very few touchdowns that Jayden Daniels has had all season where a receiver, running back, whoever, caught the ball before the end zone and then ran into the end zone, breaking tackles, missing, making people miss, whatever. Typically, I'm pretty sure like the majority, probably even 90-something% of Jayden Daniels' touchdowns this year have been throwing to guys already in the end zone. About time somebody finally stepped up and gave Jayden Daniels some help where he didn't have to throw the ball into the end zone for it to be a touchdown. So thank you, Olamide Zaccheaus, for that. And up to that point, Olamide Zaccheaus was our leading receiver with 63 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. So shouts out to him for that. And that's when we really started to believe, like, okay, let's get it. This offense is working. Like, hey, man, we feel it. It's looking like something. And some people are actually saying that it may have actually been 13 people on the field. So I guess they needed 14 to stop us on that play, whatever. And I felt like that Olamide Zaccheaus touchdown, the second one, shouts out to Chick Hernandez, because I agree. I felt like that was like a big, like, Dan Quinn point of emphasis, because he said, this is from Chick Hernandez, he said, this team makes no sense. 4 turnovers, and they have the lead over Philly. Dan Quinn talks about winning time moments. Olamide Zaccheaus has 2 touchdowns against his former team. That is definitely the type of stuff that Dan Quinn preaches about, screams about, and wants the team to internalize with themselves. This is the type of team that we are right now. And then also, of course, we had the Devonta Smith drop 3rd down catch. That's literally probably the only reason that we even had a chance to win that game. So check in the mail. Thank you, double agent Devonta Smith. We appreciate you. You're technically like a 54th commander on the active roster with that drop that you had, man. Really appreciate that. And then, of course, Jayden Daniels leads the game-winning drive to take the lead 36-33, and that is the end of the game. We ended up going for 2, getting it and everything like that. And just to let you know, The Commanders are the first team to win a game scoring 35 plus points while turning it over 5 times in that same game since 2010 out of the entire NFL. And again, we also scored the most points against the Eagles that the Eagles have allowed all season. Now let's get to Jayden Daniels. We're already about 30-something minutes into this video. Now we're getting to Jayden Daniels, and we got to talk about him specifically. We've already talked about the offense as a whole, Cliff Kingsbury, things like that. Again, salute to him. I give him his flowers. To overcome 5 turnovers that are not technically your fault as an offensive coordinator. You're not the one fumbling the ball and throwing interceptions. I think he deserves a lot of credit for somehow scoring the most points against the Eagles that they've allowed all season, while somehow his offensive players, his roster, his guys going out there stepping onto the field because he can't have 5 turnovers. And man, I mean, early on in that game, Jayden Daniels was under siege. I mean, under complete siege by the offensive line. He was getting set up for failure. We had no running game going for him. That guy had to literally ball out for us to have any chance to win this game. He had to literally have played like a top 3 quarterback in the NFL to even give us any slight chance of hope of potentially winning this game. And he did just that, putting the team on his back for the majority of the game. Literally outside of the Olamide Zaccheaus second touchdown, all of those other ones were completely Jayden Daniels being a monster. Even the Olamide Zaccheaus one, still shouts out to Jayden Daniels for that one. And again, outside of those 2 interceptions, you would consider him playing like the best quarterback all weekend from any NFL team, man. And I mean, overall, Jayden Daniels, I mean, he had to make magic, dog. It was like 4th and 4 in the first half where he had to like juke out people for a first down. He did that a few times in this game, man. I mean, it was bad. I mean, he was under duress and he was making something out of nothing so many times this game, where anybody that's making the argument that we don't need a quarterback with mobility, I'm gonna show you this game and basically tell you why you don't win this game without Jayden Daniels having the legs that he has. If he's Tom Brady or Peyton Manning behind this offensive line, the way that they played against the Eagles, we don't win this game. You need Jayden Daniels' legs to win this game, but you also need his arm. So he can't just be a pure running quarterback like the one the Eagles got over there, Jalen Hurts. You got to be both. You got to be Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, surgical from the pocket, but you also got to be some Lamar Jackson as well. And Jayden Daniels gave you every bit of all of that combination of quarterbacks in that game against the Eagles yesterday, man. I mean, Lord had mercy. And then there was like a certain play where like Jamison Crowder had a drop first down. I mean, that was ugly, but that was also in between the De'Ami Brown deep ball, and then also he had the 4th and 4. We had to scramble for the first down. Then it was the Jamison Crowder drop ball, and then it was the Terry McLaurin deep bomb for the touchdown. Terry McLaurin's only touchdown of the day, but he still had a pretty good day, man. I mean, that throw, first of all, Terry McLaurin deserves huge congratulations for that throw, to be able to track the ball. I don't think people understand how hard it is to track a football coming to you like this. That is absolutely insane stuff. That is elite NFL stuff. That is not something a regular human, pedestrian, civilian can just wake up and do any day of the week. That is something only the great of the greats could do. Shouts out to Terry McLaurin for that catch. But that throw, I mean, Jayden Daniels is throwing that before Terry McLaurin is even past the first down marker. Just to let you know, Terry McLaurin is like right at the first down marker. It's 3rd and 8. He's probably 8 yards past the line of scrimmage. Jayden Daniels throws that while also getting blasted right in his chest and stomach area. I mean, completely hit sticked. Like a defensive player's dream to blow up a quarterback legally like that. I mean, completely. I wouldn't have been surprised if Jayden Daniels were hurt after that play, how much he got. And he knew it. He saw it coming, but was like, I got to throw this ball to get it to Terry McLaurin. So not only was he rushed because of the defender, but he also sat there with the poise to take that huge hit, knowing that it was coming to deliver that ball to Terry McLaurin. He deserves a lot of credit. And then the accuracy on it, shouts out to Terry for getting open, dropped it right in the bucket. Amazing. But then later on in the game, Terry McLaurin had that terrible overthrow to Luke McCaffrey in the first half. I mean, that one was insane. That was purely just like overthrow for no reason. What was even crazier is because, like, you know, typically when you're throwing it to a receiver over the middle, you overthrow him. Typically, the excuse you can make for it is like, okay, there was a linebacker underneath. I tried to throw it over the linebacker's head, but in front of the safety. No, there was no linebacker in front of Luke McCaffrey. Jayden Daniels just completely overthrew it for zero reason at all. I mean, I'm looking at his mechanics. I don't even know what happened. I have zero idea why that ball was just that ridiculously inaccurate. I don't know how you can go from throwing that deep bomb to De'Ami Brown, the deep bomb to Terry McLaurin, to that terrible interception he he overthrew on Luke McCaffrey right there. And I really felt sorry for Luke McCaffrey too, because we've already been screaming about getting him more opportunities. And just to let you know, both of Jayden Daniels' interceptions were targeting Luke McCaffrey. Maybe Jayden Daniels has a superstition against Luke McCaffrey. I'm gonna stop throwing the ball his way, because when I do, I get interceptions. I don't know. That was crazy. But either way, by the end of the first half, he only had a 53.33 completion percentage, 180 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, an interception, 1 sack against, 32 rushing yards, and 88.3 passer rating, which isn't terrible. But then we come out at halftime, and boy, I mean, we're skipping pretty far here, but that 4th and 11, when we needed it the very most, I have absolutely no idea how he scrambled for that first down with his own legs. And just to let you know, that play, Jayden Daniels tied the franchise single season record for 4th down conversions with 16. So this Washington Commanders 2024 offense is already tied in franchise history in 4th down conversions in the season, and Jayden Daniels had to get that with his legs, man. I literally don't understand how you pick up a 4th and 11 with 30 yards on a scramble. I mean, even just mentally, to just think, okay, I could just beat the whole defense with my legs alone instead of throwing for it, which, I mean, they'll probably like, okay, let's defend the first 11 yards so that they can't throw that. You know, let's make sure he doesn't do that. And then when it out, if he runs, we'll just come up and step up and stop him. Well, maybe only 1 or 2, maybe 3 other quarterbacks have the speed that Jayden Daniels has to even accomplish that, the agility, juking people out and everything like that. I mean, it was very impressive physically, but I feel like people are really underestimating how tough and ridiculous and clutch that was mentally to even get the idea, hey, it's 4th and 11. The whole team is depending on me. The whole city, the whole fan base, everybody's looking at me. Jayden Daniels, what are you going to do? And to have the mitigated goal to try to pick up a 4th and 11 with your own legs is absolutely insane. I mean, just the audacity to even think that you could do it, man. I mean, that was really crazy, man. You could make an argument that that was arguably Jayden Daniels' best scramble in his entire season, arguably the best scramble of any quarterback all season from anybody. Like, that was insane. He was literally carrying the team, because then later on he had great vision to throw a touchdown to Olamide Zaccheaus on a big 3rd down play with the game on the line. We needed that. And then, just to let you know, he had 5 passing touchdowns in this game, dog. And the 4th one went to Olamide Zaccheaus, which is the one that took the lead, where they had the broken coverage and also had 12 or 13 players on the field. And up to that point, Jayden Daniels had recorded 296 completions on the season, and he passed Joe Theismann 293 in 1981 for number 9 in completions in a single season in franchise history. And he still has a few more games to get that record even higher and higher and higher. Meanwhile, this guy's also running on a lot of plays. Again, mind you, 4th and 11, he had to scramble for that first down. 4th and 4 earlier in the game, he had to scramble for that first down. These are completions that he could have had if maybe the offensive line gives him better blocking, if the receivers are able to get open a little bit more. So the fact that he's climbing the franchise history in completions while also running the ball as much as he does with his legs is absolutely insane. Also, Jayden Daniels joined Robert Griffin and Deshaun Watson as the only quarterbacks to throw for 4+ touchdowns and rush for 65+ yards in a game during their rookie seasons. Legendary status right there, man. The other 2 didn't end up working out long term, but I just see so many signs as to why I feel like Jayden Daniels will be different from those other 2. Also, I mean, just to put the team on your back the way that he did down the stretch, man. And again, after the Eagles missed their 50-yard field goal, the 50 plus, whatever it was, that was good in the first half. But then in the second half, he made his 50-yarder, and he was 0 of 6 up to that point. Then he ended up being 1 of 7, and then we were down 30-28 with 3 minutes and 48 seconds left in the game. So then now this was the situation where we're looking at Jayden Daniels. All right, this is the moment you wanted. Remember against the Ravens, the defense never got the ball back for you, and you were upset because you felt like, man, if I could have just gotten the ball back, I probably could have won that game for us. Well, now's your moment. This is the moment where you go win the game for the Commanders. It was 3 minutes 48 seconds left. This is your chance to take the lead. And then the Commanders' 6th turnover of the day comes from Jayden Daniels' 2nd interception, and that was the worst one, not only of the game, but arguably the worst play that he's had his entire career all season, the worst interception he's thrown all year. Because, I mean, moving to his right, bad throw over the middle, really crowded. Luke McCaffrey's not even that open, and it was just, you were running away from where you were throwing it, so you would have had to have thrown it way sooner or way harder with your arm. I just don't know. So then, after that, we still get the ball back, but guess what? We're down 5 this time. We're down 5 points instead of just simply being down 2. So we're not playing for the field goal now. We're playing for the touchdown. Like I said earlier, hindsight's 2020. That interception probably put us in a better situation to win that game because we were playing for the field goal. We were going to put the game in the leg of, not the hands, but the legs of Zane Gonzalez. I don't know. And then the hope that our defense can get a stop after that. Nah. I think the setup that we had with like 2 minutes left and we're down 5, we need a touchdown. I feel like that was a better situation than being down 2 with 4 minutes left. I'm not going to lie. And so the Jayden Daniels decisively takes us all the way down the field with some scrambles, some great throws, hitting multiple receivers. I think he hit like Jamison Crowder, of course, for the touchdown at the end, but he hit like Terry McLaurin at one point in that drive. He had like several different receivers. He utilized all of his weapons. He didn't get gun shy or anything like that. He didn't get too overly aggressive, making mistakes. He didn't like, oh, this is a clutch situation, let me panic and make sure I only throw it to Terry McLaurin. No, he scanned the field and threw it to whoever was the right receiver on that play. Almost, it seemed like every time. It was almost the perfect drive. He picked up a few yards with his own legs as well. And then the game-winning touchdown to Jamison Crowder across the middle. He threw that ball before Jamison Crowder was actually open. He threw it to a spot before Jamison Crowder was even there. That is elite quarterback stuff, insane. So just to let you know, Jayden Daniels finished the game. He threw for 258 yards, 5 touchdowns, and ran for 81 more yards. That is absolutely insane. Game-winning score with 6 seconds left. He ended up with 339 total yards on the day, 5 touchdowns, 24 of 39 passing. I mean, literally best quarterback in the NFL type of stuff, MVP conversation type of stuff, and of course, like, rookie of the year on lock. We're done even discussing that. That's insane that people even still talking about that, man. We really have ourselves a guy. We've been waiting for that guy. Not only did we get a franchise quarterback, we went ahead and skipped the line and ended up with arguably one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, arguably the best quarterback in the NFL. I would argue at least the best quarterback in the NFC, the most talented quarterback in the NFC, man. So we really skipped the line. We went from not a franchise quarterback pretty much my entire life. You could even make an argument that even when we were winning Super Bowls, we won 3 different Super Bowls in less than a 10-year span with 3 different quarterbacks. You could argue that neither of those guys were technically long-term franchise quarterbacks either, right? We love them, but, you know, hopefully Jayden Daniels will finally break the burgundy and gold curse of being a 10 to 15 year long franchise quarterback like how Aaron Rodgers was for the Packers or the Peyton Manning was for the Colts and things like that. I want that type. Tom Brady for the Patriots especially. I want that type of thing where it's not just a few years of greatness. I want 10, 15, well deep into the double digits type of franchise quarterback stuff, man. So again, we skipped the line. Not only do we have a franchise quarterback, but again, we skipped a few spots. We were hoping that Jayden Daniels could at least be like a give me top 15 quarterback. This guy's arguably easily top 3, top 5, easily. And again, I wouldn't be mad if somebody's making an argument for literally the best quarterback in the NFL, but I think next year will be his time to really prove himself to be literally the #1 best quarterback in the NFL. I feel like he has a strong case to make there. And again, I don't care about Eagles injuries. Jayden Daniels still put up 36 on the best defense in the NFL. We killed ourselves with 5 turnovers and still won that game. And just to let you know, that Jayden Daniels and Jamison Crowder 9-yard game-winning touchdown, the win probability was as low as 5.7% with 19 seconds left in the third quarter. Their odds of making the postseason now jump to 93% because of that win, while the Eagles' NFC #1 seed odds fell to 4%. So we just completely took them out of the chance of getting the #1 seed, basically, unless miracles happen, and now we have a 93% chance to make the playoffs because we won this game, man. And now Jayden Daniels is up to 22 passing touchdowns on his career this year so far, and I mean, you never know. It's not very likely, but he's 8 touchdowns away from being the first quarterback for the burgundy and gold to throw 30-plus touchdowns in the season since 1967. We'll see, man. And also, I mean, shouts out to Terry McLaurin, the praise that he had for Jayden Daniels after the game. He said, quote, "I've never seen that from a rookie," unquote. Neither have we. I mean, most NFL fan bases have never seen that from a rookie. Jayden Daniels is one of one, not even just burgundy and gold wise, but NFL history wise. Terry McLaurin also said, quote, "His ability to get better is why he has a chance to be one of the great ones," unquote. And I like that quote because Jayden Daniels, no matter how much praise he receives, how great he's been in previous games, you can tell that this guy is still working hard to get even better than he was. Like, remember after the Bengals game and people were praising him, Cardinals game, all of that type of stuff, people were praising him and putting him on a pedestal and saying he was the MVP of the league. Well, that guy still kept saying, well, not good enough still. You can call me the MVP of the league all you want, but I still have things I need to work on to get better. And I love the fact that he has that mentality. And then Jayden Daniels after the game said, Dan Quinn talked about this all week. If we want to be one of the heavy hitters, we got to beat one of the top dogs. I love that quote, and that's very important because we had not beat a winning team up to this point until we just beat the Eagles. So we finally beat a team with a winning record this season. Finally, we needed that, man. And of course, the crowd was so excited. Even Brian Baldinger was at the game, and he showed like a clip of the crowd being extra excited. That was a magical moment as well. You can go to his Twitter and check out that video. I don't want to play that here and like just completely steal his content. Go check that out. Brian Baldinger was at the game in like a nice press box view, like as soon as the touchdown happened and how the fans celebrated. It was beautiful. Also, just to let you know, shouts out to Ben Standig for pointing this out. Dan Quinn said back on Friday before the game, quote, if you want to be a contender, you have to beat some heavy hitters, unquote. And again, Jayden Daniels echoed that immediately. Hey, we became a heavy hitter today. I love that, man. Also, Jayden Daniels at the podium after the game said, quote, I always believe we could win the game, unquote. And I love that type of confidence. No matter what situation we're in, he always believes. Then Samuel Cosme talking about Jayden Daniels in the locker room after the game. He said, we know that if we keep fighting for him, he will make a play for us. And you know how immense of a mentality that is, like how great that is for an entire team to believe, hey, if we just do our job, the quarterback will do his and we always have a chance to win the game, no matter the situation, no matter the opponent. You know how powerful and potent that is for a team to have that type of mentality and spirit? That is absolutely insane. I just saw that my dog Carson Beck will officially miss the rest of the season after undergoing elbow surgery today. So that's interesting, you know, kind of a little bit of a mood killer while I'm talking about my Commanders, but I'm still on too much of a cloud nine to even care. I'll worry about that later after I'm done with this video. But either way, Jamison Crowder and Jayden Daniels both said that they ran that same play in practice. The game-winning touchdown, they ran that play in practice on Friday and had the same result. It ended up being a touchdown, and then Cliff Kingsbury makes sure he pulled that out of the deepest corner of his bag and used it against the Eagles. I feel like that's phenomenal. I feel like people don't really understand how much of a Disney moment that is. They literally practiced that play for that exact moment on Friday, and then for it to end up being utilized and being the game-winning touchdown play against the Eagles on Sunday is insane. So shouts out to the Commanders for their preparation. That kind of goes back to the point that Cliff Kingsbury said that, I mean, we had to play the Eagles on Thursday night last time. We didn't have enough time to prepare, and I know a lot of people were saying that's excuses, but think about it. They practiced that play on Friday. We played the Eagles on Thursday the last time we played them. We wouldn't have had that play ready if we had to play them on Thursday again for any like ridiculous reason, which is impossible. Just let you know, a full weeks of practice and preparation really matters. That's my point. Also, just want to remind y'all that the Commanders could not run the ball at all. We had 15 rushes for 32 yards from the running back specifically against the #1 defense in the NFL, and Jayden Daniels still led us to 36 points, 339 all-purpose yards, and 5 touchdowns. Stop playing with him, man. Please stop. And also, I'm hoping that this game, my final Jayden Daniels point, I'm hoping that this game completely laid to rest the whole question about whether Jayden Daniels could play in cold weather or not. I feel like he destroyed that concern with this game right here. I don't want to hear it because that game was cold enough to where I'm good. I'm not interested in going to games necessarily if it's that cold. I mean, I might pull up if it's like a really good game, a really important game, like a playoff game or like a must-win game maybe. But just to go on a random Sunday to a game that cold, I was definitely happy to be in my own house with my heat watching that game. So for Jayden Daniels to go out there and weather like that and still ball out like that, he deserves a lot of credit, and we are done. We are officially killing the noise about him not being able to potentially play in cold weather. Now let's move on to the running backs, and then we got to talk about the wide receivers, the tight ends, and the offensive line. And of course, Brian Robinson had a pretty rough day. First of all, on top of the fact that he couldn't run the ball well because the offensive line wasn't giving him any chance, that's not necessarily his fault. He had 10 rushes for only 24 yards. That's 2.4 yards per rush. I remember during the live stream, for those of y'all that are there, y'all remember that I was even getting excited. Like, he only ran for like 1 yard or even negative yards for like a considerable amount of time in that game. I think by the second quarter, he finally had like a 2-yard rush, and I literally celebrated as if he scored a touchdown. And then later on in the game, he had like a 3-yard rush, and I started celebrating like we won the Super Bowl, being sarcastic. But I mean, it was just really that tough for him to run the ball, and I don't really feel like that part was his fault, but the fumbles definitely were. He had 2 fumbles in this game, had us questioning, is it time to bench him? Is it time to cut him at the end of the season? Should we trade up for Ashton Jeanty by the end of the game? But I do want people to kind of take some time, take a breath, because that is Brian Robinson's first fumble this entire season. Yeah, he picked a terrible game to do it. And yeah, it's even worse the fact that he was talking all of that trash before the game, saying that the Commanders are better than the Eagles. Well, you not. You weren't, you know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of, yeah, maybe Jayden Daniels is better than Jalen Hurts. Maybe Terry McLaurin is better than A.J. Brown or Devonta Smith. We can make arguments there, but you weren't better than Saquon Barkley. I can tell you that, man. I mean, the second one was scary. I mean, our offense was moving. That felt like an Antonio Gibson type of fumble where the offense finally has some shine of light. We finally have some momentum, and then you fumble in the red zone. Remember, Antonio Gibson had a propensity for fumbling within our own 20-yard line to set the other team up to score, or to fumble or in the red zone for our offense right when we were about to score. It's like the most inopportune fumbles possible. Brian Robinson felt reminiscent of that with the second one that he had. Again, to fumble twice as a running back in one game is almost like cuttable. I mean, it'd be different. Maybe, like, I feel like the only reason we're not going to cut him, or we're going to cut him some slack, you know what I'm saying? We're going to try to, show some grace here, some patience, because again, he did not fumble all season up until this game. He had 2 in the same game, but this guy's been very secure hands all season. Now, granted, he's missed games, not like he's played every game this season, but in the games that he has played, we have not had to worry about him fumbling all season. But man, it definitely got to the point after that second fumble, it was like, Ashton Jeanty, welcome to Washington. You are a Commander. I mean, that guy had 2 fumbles in 6 carries. His first 6 carries of the game, he had 2 fumbles, man. And again, the run game had nothing going on outside of Jayden Daniels. Just to remind you, Brian Robinson had 24 rushing yards. Chris Rodriguez had 5 on 3 carries. Jeremy McNichols had 3 on 2 carries. Jayden Daniels had 81 rushing yards himself. Like, out of the 113 rushing yards we had as a team, Jayden Daniels was 81 of them. Brian Robinson had the second most with only 24. Jayden Daniels was literally the offense, man. And again, it just made it even worse, the fact that he talked trash to the Eagles, saying we're the better team before the game started. And then that was crazy. But just to let you know, Brian Robinson had lost 2 fumbles on 542 carries before today. Like, he was as sure-handed as it gets as a running back up until today. So I am going to show him a little grace. I'm going to be a little patient. Then Chris Rodriguez, one of his runs was actually a pretty good run. He showed some really good vision to get a bunch of yards there. And then now let's go ahead and move on to the wide receiver position, because it's not much to really talk about with the running back position. Maybe we could talk about in another video, should the Commanders actually for real go trade up for Ashton Jeanty in the draft. Maybe we could discuss that later, maybe in the offseason or something like that. But for right now, wide receiver-wise, Jamison Crowder got the first touchdown of the day for the Commanders from Jayden Daniels, right over the middle for 6 yards after, like, again, Cliff Kingsbury confused the Eagles defense by making it seem like we were throwing another unsuccessful screen. They played up to stop it, and then we threw it right behind them to Jamison Crowder. And it was great patience on that route from Jamison Crowder to really sell the fake and then go get it. Also, Jamison Crowder caught his first touchdown pass of the season. It's his first touchdown reception since week 8 of the 2023 season, which was also against the Philadelphia Eagles, which is interesting enough, just to let you know. And then the great over-the-shoulder catch from Terry McLaurin on the deep bomb from Jayden Daniels touchdown as well, with the Diami one before that. Also, all insane. And then just to let you know, Terry McLaurin is now up to 12 touchdown catches this season. He had 9 combined in 2023 and 2022 combined. He has 12 this year. 2023 and 2022 combined, he only had 9. 3 less than what he's put up this year alone. That's absolutely insane. I'm rewording it because I don't think people understand how ridiculous that is. Also, Terry McLaurin now has 98 plus yards or a touchdown in 12 of his last 13 games. Shouts out to Ian Hertitz for that stat right there, because I was pretty interested. And that's also coming from like a national NFL expert, not even a Commanders fan or Commanders reporter. That's just somebody from the national media saluting Terry McLaurin for what he's doing right now. Also, this is the 5th time in Terry McLaurin's career that he's eclipsed 1,000 receiving yards. Yes, against the Eagles, he finally reached the 1,000-yard mark for the season. We still have 2 more games to go. He now moves into tie with Art Monk and Gary Clark as the only players in Washington history to accomplish that feat. That's insane. Also, Terry McLaurin becomes the first player in franchise history to surpass 1,000 receiving yards in 5 straight years. That's insane stuff. Also, Terry McLaurin has now recorded his 37th career receiving touchdown and now moves into sole possession of number 8 all time in franchise history in receiving touchdowns already. He just got a franchise quarterback this year. Shouts out to Santana Moss, man. He walked so that Terry McLaurin could run. Having to deal with terrible quarterbacks his entire career. Terry McLaurin had to deal with terrible quarterbacks until this year, and now he's finally unlocked. Santana Moss would have done the same exact thing if he had a Jayden Daniels. But going back to Terry McLaurin, with his touchdown reception, Terry McLaurin has now tied the single-season franchise record for touchdown receptions. He is the first player since Ricky Sanders in 1988 to record 12-plus touchdown receptions in a single season. Also, the De'Ami Brown fumble, man, that one really hurt. I mean, he had a good game overall. He made some plays, but that fumble sucked. I'm going in chronological order just to let you know. And then Olamide Zaccheaus ended up balling out. That second touchdown he had was amazing. And just to remind you, that's 2 touchdowns against his former Eagles team. He was just with them last season. Just with the Eagles last season. We brought him in this season, and that was amazing. So shouts out to him for getting revenge against his former team. I know that made him super happy. Thank you for catching the ball instead of dropping him like you've had a propensity to do this season in random games. Also, I don't know what happened, but it wasn't until the game-winning touchdown drive that Terry McLaurin ever got a second-half target. We went almost the entire second half until the final drive of the game, offensive drive of the game, for Terry McLaurin to finally get a target. He had several targets in the first half, and then I don't know what happened in the second half where he just, I don't know, maybe the Eagles decided we're going to do whatever it takes to not allow him to get the ball. But he finished the game with 6 targets, 5 catches, 60 yards, and a touchdown, with his longest being that 32-yard reception against Quinyon Mitchell. And then shouts out to Terry McLaurin for the catch that he had on that game-winning touchdown, because that drive, because like he caught the ball, but it was inbounds. He had the awareness to roll out of bounds. He like gator rolled out of bounds so that the clock could stop. That was elite stuff before a defender could get their hands on him, because if Terry McLaurin doesn't get out of bounds right there, rolling out of bounds like he did, maybe we don't even have enough time to score the game-winning touchdown. So I feel like Terry McLaurin was lost in that game-winning touchdown drive. It's Terry McLaurin's awareness and game sense to get out of bounds by any means necessary to score that touchdown. And then, of course, Jamison Crowder had the game-winning touchdown catch. And just to remind y'all, he was just on the injured reserve a couple of weeks ago. That is insane stuff right there. I mean, Jamison Crowder touchdowns in 2024 is already crazy, but then 2 of them in the same game. Shouts out to Terry McLaurin, because he said after the game, quote, "We don't flinch at all," unquote. And I love that mentality. Also, again, everybody was talking crazy about Quinyon Mitchell locking down Terry McLaurin, locking down every receiver that the Eagles have gone against this season, right? Well, Terry McLaurin got him today. Also, against his former team, Olamide Zaccheaus led us in receiving yards with 70 on 5 catches, 2 touchdowns. And just to compare him to Jahan Dotson, that guy has 0 catches, 0 yards, 0 touchdowns. Remember, the Eagles let Olamide Zaccheaus go. They didn't cut him, but they let him walk for free. We got him without having to trade for him, right? The Eagles gave up a 3rd-round pick for Jahan Dotson, and Olamide Zaccheaus caught 5 more passes than him, 70 more yards, and 2 more touchdowns in that game. Just to let you know. And again, the Eagles traded a 3rd-round pick for their guy, and we got ours for free. So Adam Peters definitely finessed the Eagles right there. Also, tight end-wise, I mean, the only real notable things was John Bates missing that crucial block on 4th down that we talked about earlier. And then also, Ben Sinnott whiffed on a screen pass block that caused a 2-yard loss at a certain point in the game. And then Zach Ertz had a really good 1st down catch. But I got to go back and really look at the all-22 film to see how good or not good that Ben Sinnott or John Bates were throughout the game. The only time I really noticed them in the game were when they were making bad plays, not good ones. They probably had some good ones out there, but I just didn't necessarily notice. And then to finish up with the offensive line, I mean, the first 3 quarters, they were getting dismantled. Jayden Daniels was running for his life. It was bad. Andrew Wiley was getting beat on the outside. Samuel Cosmi was getting whooped on the inside, even though one of those times I was mad at Cliff Kingsbury because he did not learn his lesson. Again, I love the game overall from Cliff Kingsbury, but I still had questions, and I questioned some of the plays that he called because the last time we played the Eagles on Thursday Night Football, you did this, you kept doing this thing where you had guards pulling from Jalen Carter, and you're just hoping that a tackle or the center can come scoot over in time to get in front of him while the guard that's supposed to, like, technically lined up in front of him leaves to go block somebody else while pulling. And it never worked the last time. And then that time that we got blown up, and I believe it was I think it was the first Brian Robinson fumble, was Samuel Cosmi lined up right in front of Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter notices, even calls it out. Shouts out to my Georgia dog, not only being talented, but being smart, saying like, oh, Samuel Cosmi is light on his feet right now. And I'm mad at Samuel Cosmi for even allowing Jalen Carter to recognize that, because Bobby Wagner pointed that out in OTAs, that you're showing when it looks like you're about to pull. So us as a defense knows that. He told him that in OTAs. How are you still allowing a defense to recognize that from you this late into the season? You should have gotten that under control. So I do blame you for that part, but also blame Cliff Kingsbury for still calling those plays, because as Samuel Cosmi's leaving, Tyler Biadasz tries to slide over, but Jalen Carter already knows before the ball is snapped, hey, Samuel Cosmi's about to leave. So I'm already knowing that this guy to my slight right is about to try to lean over and scoot over to try to block me. He immediately hit him with a swim move right there, and then got the strip, the fumble on Brian Robinson. If Jalen Carter didn't know that, maybe he's not able to blow up the play. Maybe he's waiting to engage with Samuel Cosmi. He's a little late to engage with Tyler Biadasz, and then maybe Tyler Biadasz has time to get in front of him. But Jalen Carter was able to know that Samuel Cosmi was pulling. He called it out and then took advantage of the fact that he knew that before the snap, and then just completely destroyed us. And there was just so many plays where again, sometimes it was scheme, sometimes it was awareness and intelligence like that from Jalen Carter, but a lot of times they were just more talented than us. Like, there was so many times that game where they were getting consistent pressure on Jayden Daniels, only rushing 4 against our 5 blockers. And that was really, really making me mad, man. Tyler Biadasz, after returning, we missed him a lot against the Saints because Michael Dieter was bad. Well, boy, he got whooped up on against the Eagles. I mean, granted, it's Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. Again, 2 dominant Georgia Bulldog, 2 double championship winning Georgia Bulldogs right there. But I mean, you still got to be better. I mean, this is a division rival, and like I keep saying, when you're trying to win Super Bowls, you got to start with building your team to beat your division. You play all of them twice a year. That's 6 games a year. You got to be able to match up against them. So it's no excuse to just say, oh, but the Eagles defensive line is so great. What can we do? No, you need to get better and to be able to block against those guys. They didn't do that too well, especially in the first 3 quarters. And I don't know. I feel like Cliff Kingsbury, I don't feel like our offensive line just magically got better in the 4th quarter. I feel like Cliff Kingsbury, more than anything, just started to call different plays and pretty much put the offense in better situations to where they're just like, okay, you don't have to block these guys as long. Jayden Daniels getting the ball out of his hands quicker, or Jayden Daniels just going to scramble with it a little bit sooner. But hey, shouts out to the offensive line for doing at least enough to win the game, but they weren't good overall. But of course, you went into the game knowing this Eagles defensive line is arguably the best in football, so I'm not really surprised. But the offensive line looked really good against the Tennessee Titans, and they were one of the best in football, but they did struggle against the Saints, especially without Michael Dieter. We got Tyler Biadasz back, still struggled against the Eagles. We got to figure that out getting ready for the playoffs. The offensive line has to play better, but overall, again, they did enough to win technically because we won the game, but they got to be way better down the stretch. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please still farm that like button, still farm the subscription button, still farm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you let me know in the comment section how you feel about everything I said in this video. Let me know if you agree or disagree with me. Please do not leave this video without leaving a like. And if you made it this far in an over hour-long video, you are to go. I salute you. And of course, be on the lookout probably either later on tonight or tomorrow for my second half of this video where I'm going to break down the defense, and we're gonna do a full long discussion on these Eagles fans and how much they've been crying over the internet since we won that game yesterday. Well, by the time I do the video, maybe it'll be like technically 2 days ago, but we're gonna do a full dive into why the Eagles have no reason to complain. They have no excuses. We're gonna do all of that. We're gonna do like an overall review. I'm gonna bring a lot more different stats. Of course, when we're talking about the defensive side of the football, we're gonna talk about Joe Wood Jr.'s play calling, the defense as a whole, defensive line, linebackers, corners, safeties. We're gonna talk about Marshawn Lattimore's matchup against AJ Brown. Did he get whooped, or was he better than a lot of people think when you actually go back and look at the tape? We're gonna talk about all that and more in that video, so make sure you look out for that. If you haven't hit the bell next to the subscription button, make sure you do that now so you get notified when I release that video, immediately when I release it. And again, I really appreciate y'all. Do not leave this video without leaving a like. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.